This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, friends, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing in Maseches Nedarim, Daf Hashavua. We're learning Daf Hashavua Beis, and the last Amud of Parak Beis of Masechta Nedarim. The Gemara brought the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan ben Dahavai that he was told four things by the Malachi Ashares. That cripples come because people turn over the table, which could mean a number of possibilities. Either it means bia shaloi kedarka, or it means the couple is facing away from each other, or it means the woman on top and the man on the bottom, which is considered not modest. Those are three possibilities, and we have to remember these three possibilities because there's going to be an opinion that disagrees with it, which means, according to the first possibility, and we paskin like the other opinion, then what, bia shaloi kedarka is permitted? According to the opinion, if they're facing away from each other, okay, maybe that's permitted, or maybe a woman lamala is permitted. But according to the first opinion that it's mamish shaloi kedarka, do we hold that it's permitted? Halachically, it might be permitted as long as one is not moitzizar levatala. Okay, we're going to see, because the Gemara brought four things that cause disabilities in children. Cripple because shahivchen shulchanam, mute because they're menashek the makam erva, deaf because they speak at the time of tashmish, blind because they look at the makam erva. That means the man looks at the woman's makam erva. Makam erva means oisai hamakam. That's the only place that we're referring to. So Gemara asks, Raminhu, Shalu es Ima Shalom, they asked Ima Shalom, the wife of Rabbi Glatstein, Ma Banecha Yaf Yafin B'Yoyser, why are your children so beautiful? Amar Lahen, she said to them, Einoi Mesaper Imi, my husband doesn't speak with me, Loi B'Tchias HaLayla, not in the beginning of the night, Loi B'Seif HaLayla, not at the end of the night, Ela B'Chatzois HaLayla, only midnight. Uchshu Mesaper, when he speaks with me, Megala Tefach U'Mechasa Tefach. There are two tvachim that are allowed to be uncovered of a man when he goes to urinate, and he only uncovers one of them. So he keeps himself covered except for what's absolutely necessary. Now, legabe hilchos tashmish hamita, a man is only allowed to be modest and covered if the woman gives permission. Otherwise, he's part of the mitzvah of oina is kiruv basar mamash. The Mekubalim say even if she does give permission, it's still not permitted. But Rabbi Lezer was on a very high madrega, and he was mechasa tefach. V'doima olav kamisha kafay shade. It was similar to him, like he was being forced by a demon. Now, v'amarti loi, and I said to him, ma tam, why are you doing this? Why do you only speak with me in the middle of the night, but not in the beginning and the end of the night? So I don't put my eyes on another woman, think about another woman. Because if you're thinking about another woman at the time of intimacy, then it's like you had relations with her and your children were produced from her, and they're karov liyos mamzera. Okay, bottom line is, from here we see you're allowed to talk to a woman at the time of tashmish, because she said, he only speaks to me in the middle of the night, but that means he speaks to her. Says the Gemara, like kasha, haba mili de tashmish, haba mili achra naisa. It depends. If you speak to her about tuition, then it's not good for the offspring. If you speak to her about the bills, it's not good about the offspring. If you speak to her about the cleaning lady, it's not good for the offspring. But if you speak to her about mitzvahs tashmish, then that's part of the mitzvah. Not only is it permitted, it's required. It's required. Now, the Ran says, Loi b'tchilas halayla v'af b'seif halayla. What's the reason why he wouldn't live with her in the beginning and end of the night? The answer is because women are walking around in the street at that time, and he didn't want to perhaps think about them. V'af b'soif halayla, noshim hochas b'shuk v'yitin daito aleim. Uchshu mesaper, and when he would speak, uchshu meshamish mitasoi, megala tefach u'mechasa tefach. B'perk mi shemeis amrinon, she'atiru la li'isha legalos tfachayim lektanim. We permit yeah, I thought so. It's a Ta'as Sefer. We permit the man to uncover 2 tefachim to urinate. A woman only needs 1 tefach because it's coming out of Oisei Makayim. For a man, he needs more space. But he would only uncover 1 tefach. Me oisan tefachim umechasa tefach klomer v'tefach sheni nishar mechusa. And he would act as if he was compelled by a demon. Shahayim Amar, he would hasten to do the act. Ka'adam nitrad machmar shade, like somebody who's being compelled by a shade. Shekoifehu, who's forcing him. Alma mesaper hoya b'shas tashmish. We see they spoke during tashmish. Haba mili de tashmish. It's permitted if it's related to tashmish shari. That's permitted kedei l'ratzaisa, in order to appease her. We're going to see that a very big ikar in this sugya is that during the mitzvah of Aina, it needs to be performed with ahava and cheshak, and the offspring are affected by the friendship, the ahava, and the desire and passion that the husband and wife have, and any type of situation which could minimize either their love for each other or their desire could have detrimental effects. Lamaisa, here we read about Rabbi Elazar, who did the act in a very modest way, covered somewhat, and he did it as if he had to shake a lulav and then he's finished. And the Stipler wrote a famous letter in Kraina Digarta that heaven forbid for anyone to try to pull that off today, because you're maybe acting in with modesty at the expense of properly fulfilling the mitzvah d'oraisa of Oina. Okay, the Gemara continues. Speaking meant he only lived with me. It means he only had relations with me, and part of the relations was the conversation they would have. But the fact that it refers to relations in a lashon of speaking indicates that speaking is permitted. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan said these 4 restrictions: you can't turn over the table, you can't look at Oisei Makayim, you can't be menashek Oisei Makayim, you can't talk. That is the opinion of Yochanan ben Dahavai. Aval Amru Chachamim, the Chacham said, "Ein halacha ki Yochanan ben Dahavai." The halacha is not like Yochanan ben Dahavai. Ela kol masha adam roitz halasas be'ishtoi oisa. Whatever you want to do with your wife, you could do. Now, most Rishonim learn that means it's referring to the first halacha, the halacha of being mahapek the shulchan. Everybody agrees you're now to look at Oisei Makayim. Everyone agrees you're now to be menashek Oisei Makayim, and everybody agrees you're now to speak about matters not related to tashmish. The machlokes is only whether it is permitted to be mahapech the shulchan. Like we mentioned, according to the shita, mahapech ha-shulchan means bia shalei kedarka. Then this Gemara would be saying bia shalei kedarka is mutter. According to the pshat, it means that she could be on top. Then this Gemara, that Rabbi Yochanan ben Dahavai said she cannot be on top, then this opinion would hold she could be on top. La halacha, we are not lenient legabe bia shalei kedarka, although, if I'm not mistaken, the Beis Yosef said it could be done be'akroi, very occasionally. But the Ran here is going to say as long as one is not moitzi zar levatala, so that sort of negates that possibility. But the Gemara says, Kol masha adam roitz alasis b'ishtayoisa. Masha lebasar habami beis hatabach. It's like meat that comes from the butcher. Ratza la'achloi, you want to eat it, b'melach oichloi. Beat meat from the butcher, you want to salt it, eat it, go ahead. Tzli, you want to roast it, you eat it. Mavushal oichloi, cook it, you eat it. Shaluk, You want to boil it, oichlai. V'chein dog habami beis hatzayit, or a fish that comes from the fish trapper. What does this have to do with marriage? Well, sometimes what worked when a person was first married, so to speak, you could satisfy one's desire with less. All you need to do is salt it, because there was more youthful desire. But then, as the couple gets older, sometimes other hachanos may be needed to produce the desired result. Sort of like meat that's a little older, sometimes you got to roast it. Okay. Amar Meir, Man Malachi Asharis. Yochanan ben Davai said the angels told him. Who are these angels? Rabbanan, the rabbis. If they're mamish malachim, Amay Amar Rabbi Yochanan ein halacha Yochanan ben Davai. Why would Rabbi Yochanan say halacha is not like Yochanan ben Davai? Ha'inu b'ki b'tzuras havlat tvei. Who would know better than the angels what affects the outcome of a child? So why are the rabbis called angels? They are distinctive like heavenly angels. Now it's interesting. What? Good question. Let me try to address it. Let's read the Ran first. Says the Ran, the Mitzanik Malachi Ashor Shehin Mitsuyanim, they are distinctive v'nevdalim mishar b'nei adam Malachi Ashor Kedamrinam b'Haggadah, like we say in the Haggadah. So this is first Davar Yafa b'Itai. It's 30 days before Pesach. Malamid shel Yisrael Mitsuyanim sham. By the way, did you ever see any in a Gemara or in a Rishon quote the Haggadah? No, only 30 days before Pesach. Okay. Shaharei im b'fnei atzman. Shahayu am b'fnei atzman. Like Klal Yisrael in Egypt were like a nation by themselves. V'loy nisarvu b'Mitzrayim. Now it's interesting that, okay, Rabbanim are called Malachi Asharis Dimitzaini, but why in this context? It seems like this is a specific area, Dimitzaini Chachamim, the way that they accord themselves with modesty is a distinctive trait of Talmidei Chacham. So Mendy asked a very good question. The Gemara says, who are these Malachi Asharis? The Rabbanan. Because if it's the angels, then why wouldn't the halacha be like them? But they know B'tzuras Havlad better than anyone. So Mendy asks, what do you mean why the halacha is not like them? Because they're angels. We never paskin like angels.
They weren't saying a halacha. They were just saying a metzius. This is what happens to a child because of what people do. They weren't saying a halacha.
I mean, l'chayr they were, because we don't paskin like them. The Chachamim came and said that you are allowed to. So
where in the Haggadah say this?
What?
Where in the Haggadah is this? The Ran.
We're in the Haggadah, we say, we darshan, Malamed shahayu mitzu, on the words, Vayehi sham legoy, Malamed shahayu mitzuyanim sham. Right?
What if a baskal we pass like, no?
No, we don't pass like a baskal.
You pass like a baskal. I heard the Rav Shiurim on it, but...
Did I give a share on it? There's an Ar Sameach that says they're not they're just saying a general halacha that the Baskal is just saying that Beis Hillel were, let's say, Ne'elavim or Anavim, and based on that we go ahead and paskin like them. So Dr. Asi is saying, well, it's not really a halacha, but the Gemara did say, "Ein halacha ki Yochanan ben Davai." Unless, like this, it's not like a gzeres hakas of loy b'shamayim hi. The pshat loy b'shamayim hi is Torah is logic, so therefore we have to use human logic, not angelic logic. But if the subject matter is what is beneficial or detrimental to the development of a child, so why wouldn't we follow the angels? The angels, they know. Even though you could say, what do you mean? Even if they're right, but Shomer B'Sam Hashem, maybe we don't have to listen to them.
Yeah, but that's Meduik in the Gemara, actually. The word Moshe, the key that there's a lot. You have to say that. What Rabbi is saying actually fits very well to the way the Gemara says. The Gemara could have just said, the Malach is supposed to to explain, no, you should possibly that because they would know better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's cautious because, like, when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to get the Torah, he said that the whole argument he had was that only humans could fulfill it in that.
Right. Somebody came before Rabbi. A woman came before Rabbi. Amr lo, she said to him, Rabbi, arachti lo shulchan. I set the table for him, v'hafchu, and he turned it over. So either it means be a shal kedarka or the woman on top. So Rabbi said, Amr lo, biti Torah hi terascha. The Torah permitted you to him. Ani ma'asalech. What do you want me to do for you? It's mutter. Says the Ran, HaTorah tirascha, T'chsiv ki yikach hashisha shehi lekuchaloi. She's taken to him, la'asesba, kol chavtzai, to do whatever he wants, because of a Rambam Zal, Perek Chafalf, Mehuchas Yisrael Biu, Vavad Shlo Yotzi Shechazel Vatala. As long as he's not Moitzi Zel Vatala, whatever he needs to satisfy his desires, he's allowed to. Hahid Asol Kamei de Rav. Somebody came before Rav, Amr Loi, she said to him, Rebbe, Arachti Loi Shulchan, V'hafchu. He turned over I set the table, and he turned it over. What does that mean he turned it over? I guess again, Bir Shaloi Kedarka. So Rav said, Amar, Maishnam and Benisa. Why are you different than a fish? Why are you different than a fish? A fish you could boil, you could toast, you could broil, you could fry. So that's how he served it up. Apparently, back in the day, the woman accepted that. Okay. Don't turn after your heart. From here, Rabbi said, person should not drink one cup and put his eyes on another cup. Don't live with one woman thinking about another. Ravina this is only needed if the woman he's thinking about is usher to him. It goes without saying that it's not permitted. But even if he's married to both and they're both permitted, he should not be thinking of one while he's living with the other. Again, we said because that means he's not living with the first with ahava and cheshek. Amar Avina, okay, says Gemara on the pasuk in Yecheskel, Ubarusi mikem hamardim apashim. I'm gonna choose out from you the rebels and the sinners, which means that there's certain people in this world that are labeled rebels and sinners, and it's because of the type of relations their parents had. Ki Amar Reb Levi, Elu b'nei Tisha Midos. These are the offspring of 9 types of characteristics. It's called b'nei Asnas Mishagach. The first, and it's really 10, but the Aleph stands for 2 things. B'nei Ema, the children of fear, says the Ran. Maishna min banisa, dog shitzaleo, shalka kirtzayna, fish, you roast it or broil it as you want. Al yishta adam mekaiseh, shabashash, and niskak im ishtai, when you are having relations with your wife, lo yitin eina b'ishachas, you not be thinking about another, afilu hu ishtai. By the way, I just want to say a small idea that it's interesting that the sugya of relations is found in Masechta Nedarim. Like, what in the world is this doing here? So simply, I guess it's because, how did it even come to this? We were talking about.
I think he broke open his arm. Beginning of it.
Right. Al tirag Nedarim shezav limo b'shvois. Al tirag. Val tar b'sich mishav l'niyaf. Kalat soife benashim soif balidei avera. Just there's an idea. The Chida brings down this idea in many places that there's a bris sefasayim and the bris mila, that the way to guard kedushas habris is kedushas hadibor. So really, Nedarim and the mitzvah of oina b'kedusha are really dependent on each other. That one, if one wants to guard his mouth, guard the bris, you have to guard your mouth. There are many rayas to this. The Chida says it explicitly in many places. One interesting thing is we know the Mabul came because of their Motzi Zara Levatala, so Hashem saved Noach in a teva, a word, literally, a teva. The dimensions of the teva were 30 by 300 by 50. Lashain. Okay? Anyway, that's just one idea. Fine. Says the Ran. Al yisha adam mekoizeh shabasha shenizkak im ishtay leitin ena bisha acheres afil hi ishtay hamordim apashimi elu b'nei tisha midos shalfi sheish tzad avera b'yitziras, and since there is some form of avera in their creation, hevu mardim upashin, they will be rebels and sinners. So what's b'nei ema? Lashon yira, a lashon of fear. Shamatel ema lishtay, you instill fear against your wife, li zakek la, to have relation shaloi kertzayno mitakach ein banav hagunim, and therefore one's children are not proper. Lefi shenoig shaloi kashura, because you acted improperly. Kedarshin parak hamoitzi tefillin ve'atz biraglayim choyte bnei anusa gri tvei mibnei ema. The next case in the Gemara is bnei anusa, where not only did you instill fear against the woman, you coerced her. You basically raped her. Greed, and that's worse from Ema. The case where you instilled fear, you didn't mamish force her. Anusa mari b'sha'ansa lagamri. Anusa refers to completely forcing. Since these two categories are similar, it's considered like one. Reb Levi Amar Teisha Midos. Reb Levi says there are 9 characteristics of a pertan. When you count them, Atamoitzi Eser, you find 10. Then B'nei Snua, a woman that you hate, Shesoina, that you hate her, Mitakach Noisein Dato Alisha Acheras. Even though I guess you could ask, it says by Leah, Vayar Hashem ki Snua Leah. So what, Yaakov lived with her when she was a Snua? B'nei Nidoy, if one of the partners is excommunicated, Shabal Ek Shimenuda. B'nei Timura, Shabal achas minashav savashit sarasa. He lived with one of his wives thinking it was the tzara. He lived with, let's say, Leah, and he thought it was Rachel. So the obvious question is, somebody did that. Why is Ruvain not considered B'nei Timura? Yeah? Why is Ruvain not considered B'nai Timur? What?
His chilek was outside Eretz Yisrael.
You're saying because he's a B'nai Timura?
And his bracha wasn't that great.
I mean, but Ruvain is Ruvain, right? I think the Magen Avram asked that question. Okay, Ayin Sham. Maybe we'll talk in the Ian chair.
How was the Kaddish without that? He asked the wrong person, right? And the Kedushin were both getting.
Well, he did the Maisa to this woman. Or maybe we say Ein Adam Ba'al Bilasa Biasnus, so a person is Goymer Bedatoi, that whoever it is, but still it's still B'nai Tamura. And you wanted to know, what does this have to do with Purim? B'nai Shichros. B'nai Shichros. I mean, can you imagine? What's the likelihood of the Amad before Purim? To B'nai Shichros. Rashi says, Shemitach Shechrusai, Eino Noisin Daita El Ishtai. If you're drunk, you can't give it the proper attention. B'nai Gerushas Halev, a child produced from a woman that the man had in mind to divorce her. Shagamar B'li Belagarsha. B'nai Orbuvia, the child that many people lived with this woman, and now we can't tell who the father is. B'nai Chatsufa, the children of a woman who demands tashmish. Shemi'iza panea, she's brazen, liyas taiva bepeh. Frak the Gemara, Eini, it's not true. A woman should not demand tashmish. The child will be b'nei chatzufa. Anyone who their wife demands tashmish, having leibanim, will have children. There'll be wiser children that even in the generation of Moshe you didn't have such children. Shenemar havu lachem anashim chachamim unavainim. They said, let's appoint wise men of understanding. But they didn't find any men of understanding. They only found wise men. Apparently in the times of Moshe there were no Nevainim. Uchsiv v'ekachas rashei shavteichem. V'loiksiv Nevainim. Uchsiv Yisachar chamar garem. It says Yisachar, a donkey caused him. Do you know what happened? Yaakov was primed to live with Rachel. But Rachel traded for the Dudaim. And Rachel said, Lachein yishkav imcha imach halayla. He will lay with you tonight. So she traded the Dudaim for Yaakov. And then when Yaakov was coming back from the field, Leah said, directed him to her. So when we say Yisachar was a bony donkey, it also means Yisachar was created through the donkey that went into Leah's tent instead of Rachel's tent. And what do we know about the descendants of Yisachar? Mibnei Yisachar yoidei bina leitim. They were Nevoinim. They were bnei bina. So we see that not only is it not asur to be tovei b'peh, it produces good children. It says Gemara, hi demertzaya artsuye. That's when she doesn't demand explicitly, but she appeases and she seduces, but she doesn't demand. So to demand is b'nei chatzufim. To appease is a segula for very wise children. Basically, if you look in the Siddur of Rabbi Yaakov Emden, he writes almost, it's hard even to speak about it in public, that the quality of one's children is dependent on the desire and the cheshek and the passion b'shas oina. So the Ran says, Kol adam sheishtoi toivatoi, Kaleya sheyatzel lefnei Yaakov, like Leah went out before Yaakov, Amar loi, Elai tava, you're coming to me, v'yatzel mimeni Yisachar, t'chsev umnei Yisachar yodei binu leitim, demartzia artsuye, shemefata oisai, she seduced him b'divrei ritzoi upios, Kaleya, shaloi amra liYaakov, she didn't say to Yaakov to have relations with her, ela lasar la'ala, only to turn aside to her tent, avaloi shetehei toivatoi b'peh. So that... What?
Nobody in the dirt, Moshe Rabbeinu was after their husband.
Oh, for a woman to try to get a guy to do something without asking explicitly? No, they don't have that down. No.
The Kiyar, wasn't the mirror for the Kiyar? Wasn't that all from the women?
The mirror from the Kiyar. So you're saying since the women were seduced their husbands with the mirrors, they should have had a lot of Nevoinim. Right, Rashi says in Vayakel, the woman would say, Ani no mimcha. I'm more good looking than you are. So we see that the women seduce their husbands, so why wouldn't that make the offspring Nevoinim? Good question. Hadrin alach ve'elu mutarin. This concludes the second parak. So now we're going into Purim. We're going to be finishing the second parak of Nedarim and Bez Hashem, the first chelek of Mishnah Berurah. Wow, what a Purim. That is some Purim. Okay, Rabbi Isai, have a wonderful Freilichem Purim. What's today? Tuesday? You need to hear tomorrow night Shiur on Purim. Unbelievable stuff. 8:30 tomorrow. Hatzlacha. Also, you could join us for the last page of Mishnah Berurah. Tomorrow we do the top of Siman Kuf Chav Zayin. Keneged Esther, who ruled over Kuf Chav Zayin Medinois. and then Thursday we finish. On Tainus Esther. Wow.
You can have a l'chaim on Thursday.
Wow, that's a good one. Kuf Chav Zayin. Okay, Hatzlacha. Kol Tov.
You planned this out years ago.
Yeah, I scheduled it. That's why I went to
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.